resides on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. I am grateful and humbled to be on these lands as a settler and a guest. As we continue our practice of inviting international students to come to these lands, it is crucial that we, as international educators, critically reflect on what this means in the work that we do, that we not only continue to learn about the history of the lands and of the people who have been here since time immemorial, but also recognize and celebrate the ongoing contributions that these communities continue to give. I welcome everyone on this call to offer their own land acknowledgements in the chat if they haven't done so already. I understand that there are some folks on this webinar that may not know about BCCIE. Briefly, we are a provincial agency under the BC Ministry of Advanced Education, Skills and Training, and we support the internationalization efforts of BC's K-12, post-secondary and language sectors. We are excited about the opportunity to co-host this webinar with Academic Credentials Evaluation Institute. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Jasmin Saidi-Kuehnert, President and CEO of ACEI, to say a few words about her organization and to get the webinar started. Over to you, Jasmin.
Thank you so much, EJ, and it's such a pleasure to be here on this virtual platform with all of you. I'm here in Southern California. It's about 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're just delighted to be able to provide you with information on the issue of credential fraud, specifically in the area of diploma mills. I represent the Academic Credentials Evaluation Institute. We're based in Los Angeles, California. I'm joined here today by my colleague, one of our senior credential evaluators, Zina, Rumleanscaia, who will be assisting me with this presentation. We are a credential evaluation service that provides the international credential evaluations to U.S. colleges and universities and those institutions overseas who are interested in understanding the comparability of an educational program against their program. Before we begin, I too would like to provide the land acknowledgement for where we are located here in the Los Angeles Basin. We acknowledge that the Academic Credentials Evaluation Institute is included in the region of the ancestral and traditional lands of the Gabrielino-Tongva people, who historically inhabited the Los Angeles Basin area. The word Tongva means the world, or people of the earth. The Tongva people lived and cultivated the land for thousands of years before the arrival of the Spanish settlers in the mid-1500s. It was until 1994 that the state of California formally recognized the Gabrielino Tongva people under state law. They still have not been granted federal land rights by the federal government. We honor their connection to this region, and we give thanks to the opportunity to live and work and learn on their traditional homeland. Let's take a moment to pay respect to their elders and to all Gabrielino Tongva people, past and present. Thank you. And before we begin, I would like to let you know that this presentation is being recorded and a link to the recording, including the slides, will be emailed to you shortly after. We have much to cover, but plan to leave some time before closing for your questions. Please type your questions in the chat, and for the duration of this presentation, the audience will be on mute. Thank you, and let's begin. Zina.
For the purposes of this presentation, we will concentrate on three types of individuals. One has a degree or a certificate from an accredited academic institution. The second one has a degree or certificate from a diploma mill. And the third one and the last one has a forged certificate or a degree. Now let us take a look at terms and definitions that we will use throughout this presentation. Accreditation is review of the quality of higher education institutions and programs. Higher education accreditation is a type of quality assurance process under which services and operations of post-secondary educational institutions or their programs are evaluated to determine if applicable standards are met. If standards are met, accredited status is granted by the agency, which is usually an impartial third-party entity. In most countries around the world, the function of educational accreditation for higher education is conducted by a government organization, such as a Ministry of Education. In Canada, the term university refers to academic institutions that are regulated by provincial legislation, but they are autonomous in terms of academic matters, such as quality of programs, instructors, and policies and procedures. Distinct from colleges, which grant diplomas, universities in Canada are defined as degree-granting institutions that provide bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. In the United States, however, the quality assurance process is independent of the government and is performed by private agencies. When we talk about credential and institutional fraud, we distinguish the following types. Tampering, which is altering an existing document. By forgery, we mean creating a document from scratch to look like a real document from a real institution. We also need to mention that sometimes fraud originates from within the educational institution. Also, a fraudulent credential can be provided by a service for a fee, and there are multiple services online under various names, such as replacement service, replica service, novelty degrees that provide those. Now we will look at samples of such fraudulent credentials. This is an example of a service that provides the so-called replacement and novelty diplomas. The website is called Realistic Looking Diplomas. It only takes a couple of clicks to order a diploma from this website. The website clearly distinguishes itself from its competitors. We do not make life experience degrees, and we're not in diploma mill, they state. We make realistic diplomas that look real. All of our novelty degrees, college diplomas and transcripts, international college diplomas, certificates and transcripts can be ordered right on our secure website. They claim to print realistic phony diplomas, quote unquote, on the same paper type as authentic school diplomas with real customized embossed and gold foil seals. The website offers thousands of schools, and if you can't find what you're looking for, then you can fax, scan, or mail an original that then will be returned to you. This is a transcript from a higher institution in Armenia that was submitted for evaluation. And all of the information on it was in line with what we've previously seen on other credentials from Armenia. The only concern we had was the grading scale. According to known resources, the grades 8 to 14 out of 20 were considered to be the grade of satisfactory, and the grade of 15 to 18 out of 20, the grade of good. On the transcript, the grades 13 and 14 were given the verbal descriptor of good in brackets. That puzzled us, so we contacted the university with the request to explain the grading system, and the response we received was very brief. The student for whom we received the records had never studied at our institution. The stamp on the verification letter from the university was exactly the same as the stamp on the academic credentials received for evaluation, which makes the origin of this fraudulent credential highly suspect. Sidon or Sidun University College Lebanon was among 3 Lebanese institutions involved in the Cash for Degrees scandal that broke out in 2019. At least 7 employees of Sidun University College, 5 of whom were the owners of the college and 2 held management roles, conspired with the Director General of Higher Education at the Education Ministry of Lebanon, Ahmad El-Jamal. They would pass him the names of people who had purchased fake degrees from the college, and he would then register those people in the ministry records as third-year students. Sedun University was fined $90,000 and there were appeals for its charter to be revoked. The other two institutions involved in the scandal, the American University of Culture and Education and the Lebanese French University, each received a warning and a fine of about $45,000. Over to you, Jasmin.
Thank you so much for that, Zina. And as Zina touched on this, we have a number of variations of how fraud represents itself. She just covered fraud in terms of credentials that represent legitimate institutions, but somehow have been tampered, altered, either by the individual or by a third party for fees. Now we're going to focus on the actual problem of entities that claim to be academic institutions but have absolutely no legitimacy. And the nomenclature for that is a diploma mill. A diploma mill is an entity that offers, for a fee, degrees, diplomas, or certificates that may be used to represent to the general public that the individual possessing such a degree or certificate or a diploma has completed a program of post-secondary education or training. A diploma mill does not require completion of any coursework to obtain the degree, diploma, or certificate and lacks accreditation or official recognition to be a degree-granting institution. Diploma mills often have names very similar to well-known recognized schools and universities. For example, we've seen diploma mills calling themselves Stamford University, kind of playing on the word, the name Stanford University. We've had some that even misspell instead of saying, to look like McGill University is MacGill University. So they're very clever, sometimes sloppy, but they will use these tactics to misrepresent themselves. Some diploma mill operations are large fraud rings that also produce other types of fraudulent documents, such as driver's licenses, passports, vaccination cards, birth certificates, and other identification documents. They also offer many associated student services, including transcript verification, foreign credential evaluation, even membership in so-called alumni association, which are all fake. This is a website for a known diploma mill. The name of this institution is the California South University. It's based in Irvine, California. So if you look at the website on first sight, you're thinking, well, this looks okay, but look at the URL, http calsu.us. They typically miss that edu. That's one clue to be aware of when we're looking at websites of institutions to ensure if they are legitimate or not. And we'll get more into detail about how to detect them in a little bit later in the presentation. Here we take a look at California South University's website. We went to the page where it's the icon that says notable people. So we clicked on that and this page opens and they list about 8 of their notable people who are affiliated with the university. On this list, we see the image of Professor Dr. Kenneth Brisham, who is titled to be the full distinguished professor in academic tenure of law. But if you look at the photo of this individual, right behind the image is the word Jeb. This is a photograph of former governor of Florida, Jeb Bush. So this is a classic example of how a diploma mill will copy and paste content from legitimate websites and even screen grab images from internet to populate their site with photos of alleged faculty and administrators, all of which are fake. California South University we found has a London, England address and its IP location in Germany. All red flags. So we have diploma mills, but now we also have accreditation mills. An accreditation mill is an organization that claims to award educational accreditation to higher education institutions without having government authority or recognition from mainstream academia to operate as an accreditor. Implicit in the terminology is the assumption that the mill has low standards or no standards for such accreditation. Accreditation mills are much like diploma mills, and in many cases are closely associated with the diploma mill. The accreditation they supply has no legal or academic value, but is used by a diploma mill in its marketing to help attract prospective students. There was a time that diploma mills would use claims of accreditation as unnecessary. They would even speak disparagingly of accreditation. If we would look at their websites, and there would be page after page dedicated to why they are not accredited and why accreditation is useless and has no value. But I think over time they've recognized that accreditation does have value, and they need to have some semblance of legitimacy for their illegitimate activities. So they have created a companion, which is the accreditation mill. According to the Council for Higher Education Accreditation, CHIA here in the United States, an accreditation mill is one that allows accreditation to be purchased, allows institutions to attain accredited status in a very short period of time, does not conduct site visits, and does not conduct interviews of key personnel as part of its accreditation process. It grants permanent accreditation with no requirement for later periodic reviews, has a name very similar to the name of a recognized accrediting organization, publishes few or no standards for quality, publishes claims for which there is no evidence, does not reveal its location, and some share the same URL as the institution they have accredited. And here's a sample website of an accreditation mill called the Association for Online Academic Excellence. And when you look at their list of their so-called accredited members, it's a litany of all the nefarious diploma mills. So we have diploma mills. We then have accreditation mills that they created to give some illusion of legitimacy. But what they've also found is that they also need to have their academic programs recognized as comparable to a particular level of education if they've sold their degree to someone and that person is now moving to another part of the world, and wherever they are, somebody has to assess those credentials to see if it's valid. So they have also decided, well, let's create an evaluation mill that can also serve that purpose. And we are now seeing the existence or the emergence of these evaluation mills. So for your information, a legitimate credential evaluation process is an unbiased assessment of international educational credentials done by trained comparative education professionals who follow generally accepted industry standards. Credential evaluators produce reports that determine the validity, comparability, and usability of the foreign credentials against the standards of education of the country where the individual is seeking to continue their studies or immigrate or find employment. Fraudulent evaluation services, or what we call an evaluation mill, violate all of these fundamental principles. They literally just go hand in hand with the diploma mill. They create or generate a report claiming the comparability of the diploma program to one of an accredited program, let's say, for example, offered by a Canadian university. And they issue this report, attach it to the diploma from the diploma mill that bears the accreditation of an accreditation mill, and they send the individual off on their merry way. So as you can see, it's a chain, it's a very intricate collaborative effort between these sort of entities, and it could be just created by one entity that has set up a diploma mill, an accreditation mill, and an evaluation mill to support its illegal activities. So the question that sometimes comes up is, why are there diploma mills? And diploma mills isn't something new. They have been around for centuries. People have falsified documents to misrepresent themselves in some way or another. And we've seen historically that this has kind of gone back to even as early as the 1900s here in the United States, as more people started with the Industrial Revolution, as more people were getting it more into the workforce and education started to play a part. We saw that the emergence of people representing fake institutions and selling credentials became something that was quite popular. It is a supply and demand, so this is common. As long as there's a demand for credentials, we will have diploma mills. The more competitive the domestic and global job market becomes, the more it will encourage job seekers to look for shortcuts and purchase degrees from diploma mills without having to apply to a college or university, attend classes, sit for exams, complete coursework. We see also those who are trying to qualify for civil service and government jobs that have pay rankings and salary increases based on college degrees earned. It seems to push a lot of individuals to look at diploma mills as an easy option. Unfortunately, we've seen examples of individuals, some in very sensitive positions in government, who were found to have degrees from diploma mills. One such individual was a woman called Laura Callahan. She held a number of positions of increasing stature over the years, including as Deputy Chief Information Officer at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And she was at the White House as its Senior Information Technology Manager. She claimed to have a PhD in computer science, along with a number of other academic degrees. She gained access to oversee the U.S. Department of Labor's $420 million budget and managed databases containing key information on terrorism and U.S. security. In 2003, it came to light that all of Callahan's academic credentials, her bachelor, master, and PhD, were fabricated with the help of a diploma mill, formerly located in Wyoming under the name of Hamilton University. This fraudulent institution has since relocated to the Bahamas under the name of Richardson University. Callahan officially resigned on March 26, 2004. She was never convicted or charged. Another example is Antoine Zahra. He was a Lebanese parliamentarian. He claimed he possessed a degree in business studies from the University of Harrington, which turned out to be unaccredited and a diploma mill. Another example, and there's so many, and I'm not going to spend too much of our presentation, but it's another gentleman. His name is Sven Otto Littorin. He was an ex-Swedish minister for employment, claimed to have an MBA from Fairfax University. Again, a diploma mill. So as you can see, there is really limited or no regulation. This is another reason why diploma mills continue to exist and proliferate. There is this absence of local and international laws and regulations, lack of penalties, or severe legal ramifications that could help deter diploma mill operators, and buyers also pose they see that there's no deterrent for this illegal activity. So the responsibility really falls on the shoulders of those of us who encounter credentials in our line of work, whether we are in admissions, whether we are in human resources, whether we are credential evaluators, where we have to really exercise due diligence in the review and verification and processing of these documents. As the title of our presentation said, it's a global problem, and here's just a sample of the countries that are facing issues with diploma mills. The United States leads the world in diploma mills. This is according to the UK firm Verifile. They claim that the US may lead the world in diploma mills, degree mills, and fake online colleges. And the reason for this is due to the lack of regulation on the state and federal level. And there are loopholes in tax laws that allow these diploma mills to operate tax-exempt religious institutions without accreditation. And the term university isn't legally protected at the national level in the United States. This is why we had the existence of Trump University. And as you can see, United Kingdom is the #1 hub in Europe for diploma mills. But I believe now we can give maybe that credit to Pakistan as well. It's become the world's largest hub for counterfeiting documents. We will get more into the issue with Pakistan, but just a brief overview is that in 2015, the New York Times did an investigative report that revealed the largest diploma mill operation in Pakistan, known as AXACT, A-X-A-C-T. We'll look more closely at this diploma mill later, but what the New York Times article brought worldwide attention to was that AXACT facility was developing these diplomas for hundreds of thousands of individuals. They were also set up to start a news broadcasting system. So by virtue of kind of setting up this diploma ring, they were also trying to become the next, let's say, CNN or Al Jazeera for Pakistan. So the question we have is, why should we care? Why should we be concerned about diploma mills? And the primary reason to be concerned about the degree mills is that they demean the value of learning and the importance of educational standards by treating degrees only as a commodity to be bought and sold. However, there are other reasons as well. In some cases, degree mills defraud individuals who are misled by the promises of the alleged school that the degree they earned from that school will have some value. Individuals with bogus degrees also present a danger to the public. This is particularly true of those who receive bogus credentials in fields where they could present a threat to health, safety, or well-being. A while ago, I was invited to be an expert witness on a legal case where the prosecutor wanted to prove that the individual had claimed to have false credentials, claimed to be a psychotherapist, and had treated a number of people. And it turned out, based on the assistance that I provided, that the individual's credentials were all from a diploma mill, and it claimed to have a doctorate degree. So this is how it can be incredibly dangerous and a threat to individuals' health and security. A quick look at the degree mills advertising on the internet shows that the degree mills offer degrees in fields such as nursing, nutrition, electrician, mechanical engineering, biochemistry, accounting, law. These are all professional programs, many of which require professional licenses. And let me also add that they will also falsify professional license certification. Degree mills are unfair to the millions of individuals who have worked hard to earn legitimate degrees. So this is another factor that poses a great danger to us. So now we will move on to the techniques of how we could be good detectives on how to spot a diploma mill, and I will allow Zina to take over.
Let's look at the red flags that you need to pay attention to when you're reviewing documents and investigating an institution that has issued the documents. The website of a diploma mill looks like a shopping cart or an online store. The website URL usually ends with a .net, .com, and not .edu. The diploma mills share the same IP and physical addresses with other bogus university. The diploma mill claims to be accredited, and the accreditation board has the same address as the diploma mill. The diploma mill claims accreditation by a so-called accreditation body in another country or a micronation other than the country where it's based or registered to operate. Its website is littered with ads by other online vendors. Again, it either claims accreditation from an accreditation mill or goes to great lengths to explain why it doesn't need to have accreditation and write disparagingly about it. It uses a name that is similar to that of a legitimate, respected institution. For example, a diploma mill will call itself Stanford University, and which you may mistake for Stanford University, or McGill, not to be confused with McGill University. The diploma mill does not have any entrance requirements, offers no coursework or instruction, either online or in class, conducts no final examination to assess learning. There are minimum required timelines to complete a course or program, and the degree is issued in a very short period of time, or at the time when the fees for the diploma is paid. Some diploma mills websites provide a shopping cart, and you can pick and choose a la carte the type of diploma you want, field of study, date of graduation, so on and so forth, including the supporting services, such as verification in case an employer calls to verify the degree. And another red flag is pushy salespeople contacting prospective customers daily with aggressive spam and advertising. This is how Professor George Collin at the University of Illinois became aware of the St. Regis University in Iberia, a notorious diploma mill, which we will discuss in more detail later. Now over to you, Jasmin.
Thank you, Zina. Let me just set this up. Okay, well, St. Regis University, Monrovia, Liberia, West Africa. This is, I think, was one of the first largest fraud rings that was uncovered, but it took a while. And it took some diligent work by Professor George Gollin, as Zina mentioned, who was contacted by one of their sales agents as to, would you be interested in purchasing a degree, and contacting university professor. Of course, his interest was piqued, and he started digging in, and the can of worms, let's say, opened. But it took several years for investigators to really get into looking into this university. St. Regis University was a diploma mill. It was an operation that was one of about 120 connected institutions that operated in the US by a fraud ring ran by this couple, Dixie Randock and Stephen Randock. Stephen Randock passed away last year, but these two individuals were prolific in how they created a number of diploma mills that were not just university, called universities, also high schools. But this entire operation that was investigated by the the law enforcement here in the United States, they labeled it Operation Gold Star. Oregon State Office of Degree Authorization identified St. Regis University as a diploma mill linked to 18 other front, quote, schools, unquote. The school issued degrees based on life experience instead of requiring to take academic class or formal course of study. It also sold, as I said, college degrees and high school diplomas. It also dabbled in selling counterfeit credentials from real schools such as Penn State, Clemson University, Concordia University, and the University of Illinois. So according to court documents cited in an article published by the Chronicle of Higher Education on March 22nd, 2006, the operators of St. Regis University bribed Liberian officials in the Ministry of Education and the Foreign Office to gain recognition for their bogus credentials. And we see this sort of money laundering and bribe strategy continue. The couple that we mentioned, the Randocks, were very aggressive with their approach. They took advantage of an impoverished country. Liberia had just gone through a horrible civil war, and they took advantage of that situation by bribing several representatives within the Ministry of Education, within the Embassy of Liberia in Washington, D.C. And through that, they were able to gain recognition of this fake, bogus university based on simply paying people off. So this is a certificate of recognition and accreditation that was issued by the Ministry of Education. And it just goes on and on. We have provided links to articles about St. Regis University in this PowerPoint because it's a huge story and very lengthy to go into it right now. But bottom line is, this couple was able to run this operation for almost a good decade before they were finally arrested. The entire operation was shut down. Several people within the Liberian government offices stepped down. The Randocks, I believe, were sentenced to 4 years in prison, and much of it was because when the FBI had confiscated their computers and papers and so forth, they found that there was a lot of evidence leading to child pornography. So that was really the basis for which the shutdown happened, not so much that they were selling or fake degrees and misrepresenting the institution. The next entity that we're going to look at is the organization that I mentioned earlier. This is ACEI, based in Karachi, Pakistan. On the left hand of the screen, you will see the building, ACEI. This is their hub. And when the authorities were able to get into the building to make the arrests of the handlers of this organization, they found every floor filled with boxes and boxes of blank diplomas, transcripts, passports. This is, in a way, the factory that is creating all the fraudulent diplomas right now that are circulating around the world. And this operation was really brought into the limelight thanks to an article that was published by New York Times after a very, very deep investigation into how this organization was operating. The article, this is an excerpt from the New York Times article. It says, "Seen from the internet, ACEI appears to be a vast education empire with hundreds of universities and high schools, with elegant names and smiling professors at sun-dappled American campuses. Their websites, glossy and assured, offer online degrees in dozens of disciplines, from nursing to civil engineering, with glowing endorsements from various celebrities, including endorsements from the US State Department bearing the signature of Secretary of State John Kerry. And here's an example of what they did. Falsified John Kerry, recreated letterhead of the US State Department. On the left, you'll see a sample of some of the websites they set up. Berkeley University, fake university, almost sounding like University of California, Berkeley. This entity is literally creating a business for itself that is millions and millions of dollars worth. And even though the chief operator of ACEI, Shoaib Sheikh, along with 22 other individuals from ACEI, were arrested and sentenced to 20 years in prison, I believe they only have served 4 years of their time and were released, and ACEI continues to operate. And they have set up a network, a news network that is called BOL, B-O-L, and it's operating. So again, regulations are light. I think had it not been for the New York Times expose, I don't think the authorities in Pakistan would have taken much action against them, because it is a revenue generating source. And its ties to certain members of the military and certain individuals within the justice system pretty much made it impossible for anyone to go after ACEI until some international attention had brought onto them. And this is, on this page, you will see a sample of one of their many fake degrees. Grandtown University doesn't exist. All right, now I will take it over back to Zina.
I'd like to preface this case study with a story I found on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation website. An article published on this website in December of 2014 details shady practices of a certain practitioner, claimed to be a medical doctor and claimed to cure cancer with a diet of organic vegetables and having a positive attitude. Following this doctor's advice, the parents of an 11-year-old patient stopped chemo treatments and lost critical time that was invaluable when one is battling this disease. This doctor claims to have completed a doctorate in naturopathy and a medical degree at the University of Science, Arts, and Technology located in Montserrat. Let us travel to Montserrat and examine this institution. Montserrat is an island in the West Indies located southeast of Puerto Rico. It is a British overseas territory in the Caribbean with a population of about 5,000 people. The Ministry of Education, Youth Affairs, and Sports does not accredit educational institutions in Montserrat. However, it does issue licenses to institutions that want to operate there. Our office received academic records from the University of Science, Arts, and Technology, Montserrat for evaluation. What we see here is the degree certificate for the Bachelor of Arts in Education, specializing in teaching of English as a second language. The degree was awarded on January 31st, 2020. Remember this date in Ulverston, St. Peter's Parish, Montserrat, British West Indies. It is peculiar that a comma is missing in the university's name on the certificate after the word science. However, it is present on the transcript. The first page of the transcript on the left does not list the date of the student's admission to the university or the years of study. It only lists 8 semesters of study for the total of 4 years of study. It should be noted that the applicant provided the dates of study on the application form, and they were February 2018 to January 2020. How could he possibly have completed 4 years of study in 2 years? He must be one stable genius. Please note that at the bottom of the transcript, second languages are listed, Spanish and American Sign Language, as well as beginner Chinese and Thai. However, no coursework for these languages was listed on the transcript. USAT website claims that its main campus is on the Caribbean island of Montserrat. However, its website also states that it has satellite campuses or offices in Colorado, Florida, Texas, and Kentucky, USA, which are not accredited to operate on the US soil. It also offers classes in London, UK. The website for the University of Science, Arts, and Technology as http://usat.edu. And there were multiple other websites found for this institution that are listed on this slide. The contact phone number for the institution is registered in Clearwater, Florida. The institution's address in Montserrat is a P.O. box. However, the USAT's admissions office is located in Denver, Colorado, USA, and then the administrative address is in Davie, Florida. If you search for these two locations on Google Maps, you will see a street view of a UPS store in the first instance and a private residence in the second one. This is the founder and the president of USAT, Dr. Oriental, per Facebook page for the university. This is a snapshot of the current website for the University of Science, Arts, and Technology. The image on the left it gives some information about USAT, where it claims to have been established in 2003. The image on the right is stating that the university is currently applying for accreditation. However, it is licensed by the Ministry of Education of Montserrat to grant bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees in a variety of disciplines. This is another website for the same institution that was retrieved in 2020. On this website, you will see that USAT claims to offer multiple degrees as well as high school certificates. Obviously undergraduate and graduate degrees. USAT states on its website that it is listed in the World Directory of Medical Schools. The World Directory of Medical Schools was created through a partnership between the World Federation for Medical Education and the Foundation for Advancement of International Medical Education and Research. It was supposed to be a resource for all medical schools in the world, and it does not accredit medical schools. The World Directory of Medical Schools lists USAT as a private institution which is currently operational. In order to become accredited, a university that intends to offer medical programs in the Caribbean must undergo accreditation by the Caribbean Accreditation Authority for Education in Medicine and Other Health Professions. You will see under number 22, USAT is listed as a not accredited institution. The Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates, it's a USA organization, received information from more than 300 USAT graduates that USA conducted classes in Florida and Texas and not in Montserrat. It also discovered that it falsified attendance dates for some of its so-called graduates. In December of 2018, the Education Commission determined that Oriental, quote, engaged in irregular behavior in connection with providing false information to ECFMG, and ruled that USAT students with a graduation year of 2019 and later were no longer eligible to apply for ECFMG certification, which means that USAT students will not be able to apply to ECFMG to take the US medical licensing examination. And this is the examination that determines if these graduates are qualified to attend a U.S. residency training program and get a U.S. residency slot. After the ruling of the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates, the World Directory of Medical Schools added the note about the ruling in red, stating all of the above, and adding that currently students and graduates of USAT are subject to enhanced procedures that must be met in order to be eligible to apply for ECFMG certification services. The ruling of ECFMG with regard to USAT effectively closed the institution down. However, the records that we saw were dated 2020. And in 2019, Orientalp announced his plans to open what he called, quote, technically, a branch of USAT on the island of Tortola called the University of Health and Humanities Virgin Islands. This is the website for this institution. Please note that besides the medicine tab on the website, you can also see a tab for unspecified graduate studies as well as veterinary studies. So what can we do about fraud and diploma mills? At the end of this presentation, which is at its core a call for action, we would like to outline several actions that can be undertaken to deter the operators of diploma mills. We can support the formation of a consortium of legitimate universities and companies in the business of education to work together on issuing alerts on diploma mills and take group action. Here in the US, we are an endorsed member of the Association of International Credential Evaluators, a nonprofit organization that screens and vets private credential evaluation companies in the US. One of the criteria of membership is to alert the association members of any fraud-related issues, including discovery of diploma mills. We can also work together for the passage of meaningful legislation and the enforcement of existing laws. We can alert our local and provincial representatives and the media when a legitimate school finds its name maligned by a bogus school. We can also boycott advertising or threat not to advertise in print and online where bogus schools are also advertising. In the US, we ask that pressure be placed on the Federal Trade Commission to act on its 1998 ruling that regulates the use of word accredited and to enforce it against those that are not. We can also take action by notifying the editor, publisher, or internet site provider of magazines, publications, and websites in which bogus schools advertise and inform federal, state, and local authorities. We can educate the public through media. And the last action is for us to stay informed and keep abreast of the latest developments in the field of education. This screenshot is from a website called Quora, which is an American social question and answer website based in Mountain View, California, where individuals from all over the world post. Look at the related questions as well as at the main questions. How do I order some fake diplomas online? Is it possible to fake a college degree? Can I buy a valid college degree on the dark web? The demand for a forged fake academic credentials is as high as it has ever been, and criminals are super resourceful in finding new ways to deliver their products. At the end of this presentation, we offer an array of helpful links and reference, which will hopefully enlighten for some of the issues that we brought up today for you and keep you to stay informed about diploma mills and credential fraud. Back to you, Jasmin.
Thank you so much, Zina. We have a little time left for questions, but the links here are extensive. There's so much more we would have loved to have shared, but I think we've given you some good ones so that you could spend some time to go through them. But I think under references, we're providing you with articles related to the St. Regis University scam, exact. This is ongoing. This podcast would be really great for you to listen to. They interviewed Alan Ezell, who's an ex-FBI officer. I've worked with him closely with issues regarding exact, and the podcast really takes you on this journey of how this entity operates. This is a lot of good information about the University of Science, Art, and Technology that Zina provided you with an overview. And here we are, the end of the line with questions. We do have a question in chat our attendees asking to know, he's interested to hear how many fraudulent cases each of the services, universities, regulatory bodies, etc., receive annually. I can speak for our organization, but I can also say that I think the Canadian Broadcasting System did a report 2018 that they estimated about, oh gosh, it was about in the thousands of Canadians had been discovered to have bought their degrees from that organization in Pakistan, exact. And that's just people who have presented their diplomas to employers or academic institutions. Here in the United States, we really don't have a good way of record keeping because, as we said, there is really very limited regulation against this. So each organization or university or a private evaluation service may keep some of these records. Speaking for ACEI, we get emails a lot from diploma mill operators who contact us and they say, we have 300 students we wish to send your way for evaluation. We are such and such an entity, and they claim their accreditation, but it's easy for us. We verify, we check, and we realize that they're not, and we deny doing the service for them. So we get approached a lot in that way. As far as catching them, I think on the average, we may see 1 or 2, sometimes a week, sometimes not that many because we have very, very tight requirements about how we receive academic documents and how we verify them. And because we are members of the Association for International Credential Evaluators, we work very closely with our members and we keep each other informed. So that's the only way I can tell you we keep somewhat of a record of diploma mills is within our association where we notify each other. So on the whole, we get a notice from one of the members once a month that they have caught a diploma mill. Thank you so much. We really appreciate the feedback I'm seeing in the chat. I'm so glad that you found this interesting and useful. And we apologize, there's a lot of information that we tried to squeeze into 1 hour, but I would love to provide this as a workshop for anyone who's interested, give it a little bit more time to breathe, more hands-on. I think after this webinar ends, there's a survey and we allow you to evaluate our session, but also indicate if you're interested to take this into a bit of a more of a deeper dive. Zina, do you have anything you wish to add? You've also been very proactive in catching these diploma mills as you evaluate.
I would just like to add, stay vigilant. No matter how many times you've seen, no matter what kind of records you've seen from an institution, you can still have an one-off, just as in the example that I provided at the beginning of the presentation. If you notice even the slightest typo or something that doesn't look right, the stamp is not where it's usually located, the seals are not where they're supposed to be, or sometimes the logo of the university looks kind of funky, do verify. That's your only way of actually catching the bad guys. And although verification does take time, in the long run, it actually deters those with fraudulent credentials from entering into the workforce where they can cause more harm.
Thank you. One of our attendees says, thank you for sharing and putting the spotlight on this pressing concern. This also leads to a concern on immigration. What steps do you think can be taken to share some light on this matter? As I see, it's only when the media puts out a documentary it gains traction, but more is needed on this critical matter. I think the tips that we shared earlier, it really means, it's very much grassroots efforts. That's what I'm seeing here in the US. Our organization, along with our colleagues that are members of the association, we work together to constantly, but keep each other informed, bring this to the attention of, in our case, we actually report this to the Federal Trade Commission. On the FTC website, there is a section there for fraud. We've even reported this to the FBI. Unfortunately, a department that used to exist was called the Diploma Scam Department. The FBI used to handle this, but because of funding or whatever reason, they shut it down. But we do contact our main FBI office here when we have a serious case that we've seen. And what they do, they told us, is that they appreciate this. They keep this in their archives so that if this name ever pops up again, they can do a match. But no one was really taking action. So the responsibility, as I said, falls on our shoulders who are in the front lines, who receive credentials, and we literally have to do the best that we can. I mean, even better than best, to make sure that we catch these in time, because once one slips through the cracks, the grapevine lets the others know, and they will come through. Zina, anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, as far as immigration is concerned, I know that the USCIS is using one of the great resources that I think we've provided in the resources section, which is the EDGE database, which includes information about higher education systems around the world, and also provides a special section for accreditation, either listing accredited institutions or indicating which bodies in the specific country accredit higher education institutions. And therefore, then you can use those links in that resource to go to the lists of institutions on the ministerial websites and check the accreditation status of an institution in question. So I know that USCIS uses EDGE exclusively, and
Yes.
that's why I know it is important for us to keep informing even EDGE editors and contributors of the latest developments, so they can add that information on EDGE and everyone is aware of the developments, whatever they may be.
Let's see. Well, I have, there we are. Hi, EJ.
I just wanted to thank both of our presenters. I think it's time, but thank you, Jasmin and Zina, for such an incredible webinar. I learned so much, and for all of the resources that you provided us. And as you mentioned, Jasmin, there will be an email going out with the PowerPoint, so all the resources will be available to the participants after. And please do take that survey and let us know any feedback, so we can begin planning potentially a workshop, a longer event if desired. So again, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Jasmin and Zina. And
Thank you, EJ. Thank you, BCCIE. We really appreciate this.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a good day, everyone. Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.